The persistent hum of the laptop fan was a familiar companion, a quiet symphony to Alex's perpetually buzzing mind. It was late, again. The glow of the screen cast a tired pallor on Alex's face, mirroring the fatigue that had settled deep in the bones. For years, the story had been the same. Chase, strive, work harder. The mantra of hustle until you drop had become less a motivational push and more a weary burden. Yet, despite the relentless effort, that elusive sense of true abundance, of genuine financial ease, remained just out of reach, like a shimmering mirage on a distant horizon. It wasn't just the numbers in the bank account that felt strained. It was an internal pressure, a constant emotional drain. There was a peculiar knot in Alex's stomach, a tight clench that appeared every time the credit card statement arrived, every time a new opportunity demanded an investment of time or capital, every time the conversation drifted to future plans that seemed to require more resources than were readily available. It was a silent whisper of shame, a nagging fear that success, if it ever truly arrived, would demand an unacceptable price, sacrificing precious moments with loved ones, surrendering peace of mind, or trading in the very joy that made life worth living. The thought of being rich often brought with it an uncomfortable image of relentless grind, of perpetual stress, of a life devoid of genuine connection and simple pleasures. Was this truly the only path to prosperity? Alex had, like so many others, ventured into the landscape of manifestation. Vision boards, meticulously crafted with magazine clippings and hopeful affirmations, now lay forgotten under a pile of bills. Meditations, initially a source of calm, had slowly transformed into another item on a never-ending to-do list, a task to be performed rather than an experience to be savored. Visualizations, once vibrant and full of promise, felt forced and ultimately fruitless, the imagined outcome slow to materialize or, frustratingly, unsustainable when they did. The frustration built like a pressure cooker simmering beneath the surface, occasionally erupting into a silent, desperate question. Why does the law of attraction seem to work so effortlessly for others, yet for me, it feels like I'm pushing against an invisible, impenetrable wall? It was a question laced with self-doubt, a gnawing suspicion that something fundamental was missing, something others intuitively understood. This invisible block wasn't a tangible barrier. It was a sensation, a deep-seated resistance that felt like trying to swim upstream against an unseen current. Each attempt to align, to attract, to simply allow felt met with an energetic pushback. It was exhausting, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Alex knew there had to be more than this continuous struggle, more than this feeling of chasing an ever-receding finish line. The conventional advice, the relentless pursuit, the endless striving, it all felt like a heavy cloak that stifled rather than liberated. The deepest longing wasn't just for financial security, but for a profound shift in relationship with money itself. A relationship marked by ease, flow, and an inherent sense of worthiness, rather than one of scarcity, anxiety, and constant effort. There was a quiet yearning for a different way, a method that didn't demand constant vigilance or an endless reservoir of willpower, but something more subtle, more aligned with the natural rhythms of life. A technique that promised not just money, but harmonious existence with money. This was the precipice of profound discovery, a whispered promise of a turning point that might just unlock the very abundance that felt so stubbornly out of reach. Alex was ready for that turning point, ready to explore a hidden path that suggested the solution wasn't in doing more, but in understanding how to simply allow. The realization that struggle itself had become a comfortable, albeit painful, default was a jolt. Alex, now sitting in a quiet corner of a local coffee shop, far from the demanding glow of the laptop, found a sense of calm beginning to settle. This wasn't a frantic chase. It was a quiet turning inward, a deliberate excavation of the mind's hidden chambers. The question wasn't how to attract money, but why the attraction felt so difficult in the first place. This inquiry led Alex to ponder the very bedrock of personal financial understanding, a foundation laid long before adult aspirations or self-help books entered the picture. Consider, for a moment, the genesis of your own financial worldview. For Alex, It began with hushed conversations behind closed doors, the faint, anxious tones of parents discussing bills, their furrowed brows eloquent unspoken declarations of not enough. A vivid memory surfaced, a coveted toy, glimpsed in a store window, immediately dismissed with a familiar phrase. "We can't afford that right now," delivered with a sigh that spoke volumes about sacrifice and limitation. Such seemingly innocuous phrases, repeated over time, weren't just statements of fact. They were carefully etched lessons, subtle imprints on a developing mind. They taught that desires were often unattainable, that money was a source of stress, and that financial security was a precarious tightrope walk, perpetually on the verge of collapse. Furthermore, these early lessons often extended beyond explicit statements. Observe the silent narratives woven into the fabric of daily life. Perhaps your upbringing, much like Alex's, subtly reinforced the notion that being truly wealthy meant being isolated, or perhaps even morally compromised. There was a neighbor, for instance, who'd made a fortune quickly, but their newfound affluence seemed to be accompanied by a palpable loneliness, a perceived detachment from the community that Alex's family valued deeply. This created a subconscious association. Wealth equals isolation, or perhaps wealth equals a departure from one's true self. Such observations, absorbed almost unconsciously during formative years, rooted themselves deep within the psyche, creating an unseen blueprint that dictated future financial interactions. The influence wasn't solely familial. It rippled outwards into the wider cultural currents. Glance at popular media, at the stories we consume, and often wealth is presented as a corrupting force or superficial pursuit. How many blockbuster villains are depicted as extraordinarily rich? How many sitcom characters are shown striving tirelessly, yet never truly achieving lasting financial peace without some moral sacrifice? These pervasive narratives, digested uncritically, can instill a collective unease around genuine prosperity. They plant the seed that while some money is good, too much money is problematic, thereby creating an internal conflict that sabotages efforts toward substantial financial growth. One might aspire to abundance, yet simultaneously harbor an unconscious fear of its consequences, leading to self-sabotage and the creation of the very scarcity one wishes to avoid. Consequently, these accumulated layers, the familial anxieties, the observational lessons, the cultural narratives, coalesce into a potent, unconscious money programming. It's akin to an outdated operating system running silently in the background of your mind, dictating reactions and limiting beliefs without your explicit awareness. You may consciously desire financial freedom, yet your unconscious programming, based on these deeply embedded historical scripts, might be whispering a different story. Money is hard to come by. You're not worthy of true abundance. Or, if you get too much, you'll lose something precious. Recognizing this unseen program is not about blame, but about profound awareness. It's about unearthing the invisible threads that have subtly manipulated your financial destiny, preparing the ground to weave a wholly new and empowering tapestry of belief. This moment of clarity, of seeing the hidden roots of resistance, felt like a quiet revelation for Alex, a significant step toward dismantling the invisible wall that had seemed so formidable. Alex felt a subtle internal shift, a quiet yet profound loosening, as the invisible threads of old programming began to untangle. This new clarity illuminated certain beliefs Alex had accepted as absolute truths, revealing them instead as elaborate fictions. The moment felt like stepping out from under a dense, distorting lens that had long skewed the perception of financial reality. It became clear that the true work wasn't merely about knowing where these beliefs came from, but actively dismantling their formidable structures. A particularly insidious falsehood that had long held sway in Alex's subconscious was the notion that wealth, beyond a certain modest threshold, inherently carried a moral stain. This belief often manifested as a subtle guilt, a quiet resistance to true prosperity, as if desiring more meant becoming less authentic, less spiritual, or less connected to core values. It was a narrative deeply ingrained. The rich person is selfish, the spiritual person as inherently poor. This particular illusion, like a thick fog, obscured a profound truth. Money, in its essence, is a neutral energetic tool, an amplifier. It doesn't possess inherent morality. Its character is merely a reflection of the hands that wield it. To truly understand this is to recognize that financial abundance, when channeled through an intention of generosity, purpose, and positive impact, can become a powerful force for good, extending reach and influence far beyond what scarcity allows. Alex began to reframe this internal dialogue, recognizing that cultivating wealth was not a betrayal of integrity, but an expansion of capacity to serve, to create, and to contribute meaningfully to the world. Consider, for instance, the pervasive narrative that financial prosperity invariably demands a soul-crushing sacrifice, an unending grind that strips away joy, relationships, and personal well-being. This was a heavy cloak Alex had worn for years, a fundamental misunderstanding that equated hard work with suffering. This fallacy, a pervasive thread in countless cultural tapestries, implies a zero-sum game where one's peace must be exchanged for financial gain. Conversely, embracing the reality that true abundance can and indeed should emerge from a place of joy, inspired action, and energetic alignment, rather than relentless struggle, felt like a deep exhalation. Prosperity isn't solely the fruit of strenuous labor. It's often the natural outcome of inspired creativity, focused intention, and a willingness to receive. The secret wasn't to work harder, but to work smarter, or more accurately, to live and create with greater intrinsic alignment, allowing opportunities to unfold with surprising ease that defied the old, weary narrative of endless toil. Another deeply entrenched misconception frequently whispered within the quiet chambers of the mind was a belief of personal inadequacy in managing significant wealth. This wasn't necessarily about feeling unworthy of having money, but unworthy of stewarding it effectively. The inner critic might suggest, I'm not astute enough, not financially savvy enough to handle large sums. I'd make poor decisions or lose it all. This pernicious thought often disguises itself as humility, yet is a profound act of self-limitation, preventing even the initial steps toward greater financial responsibility and growth. However, the authentic truth presents a far more liberating vista. Financial wisdom is not an innate, fixed trait bestowed upon a select few. Rather, it is a learnable skill, a muscle that strengthens with intentional practice, education, and experience. Every individual possesses the inherent capacity to cultivate the knowledge, discipline, and the sum required to manage resources wisely, to invest strategically, and to grow wealth with confidence. The journey to financial mastery is an evolution, not a predetermined destiny, and Alex, like anyone, was perfectly capable of embarking upon it. To genuinely dismantle these phantom barriers, we must actively supplant them with new, vibrant truths. This isn't merely positive thinking. It's conscious reprogramming at a foundational level. Instead of passively accepting the old scripts, Alex began to embrace affirming declarations that resonated with these newly uncovered realities. My financial abundance enhances my purpose and allows me to serve greater good, became a frequent internal pronouncement, directly confronting the guilt around wealth. I attract wealth with ease and joy, aligning with my highest good and inspired action, replace the weary insistence on struggle. And I am capable and deserving of managing substantial wealth with wisdom, integrity, and grace, counter the deep-seated doubts about personal financial aptitude. This intentional, repetitive reframing began to carve new neural pathways, shifting Alex's energetic blueprint from one of subtle resistance to one of powerful, welcoming receptivity. The internal landscape, Alex realized, felt remarkably clearer, as if a perpetual mental fog had finally begun to lift. Yet, understanding the roots of past limitations and reframing core beliefs, while profoundly liberating, was only the initial stage of this journey. The crucial next step involved translating these profound internal shifts into tangible, daily practices that subtly, yet powerfully, rewired the very circuitry of the brain, creating a new energetic blueprint for abundance. This wasn't about demanding grand gestures, but rather about cultivating small, consistent actions that echoed the newfound understanding. Consider the potent alchemy of conscious gratitude. This isn't merely a polite acknowledgement. It's an active, deliberate redirection of focus. Alex began a ritual each morning, Before the day's demands had crowded in, a quiet moment was dedicated to truly feeling appreciation for three specific things, no matter how seemingly insignificant. Not just a mental list, but a visceral sensation. It might be the warmth of the sun through the window, the reassuring purr of the cat curled nearby, or the simple luxury of a working pen in hand. The profound impact emerged from this shift in perspective. Instead of instinctively scanning the horizon for what was lacking, the mind was actively trained to seek out and register present blessings. This consistent practice, akin to exercising a muscle, gradually rewired neural pathways, fostering an automatic inclination towards noticing sufficiency rather than scarcity. Consequently, this altered internal state began to resonate outwards, creating a magnetic field that attracted more what was genuinely appreciated, as new small opportunities or unexpected kindnesses seemed to materialize with increased frequency. Furthermore, Alex discovered the transformative power of a specific journaling technique, not as a ledger of daily events, but as a portal to a desired future. Instead of merely documenting the current financial reality, Alex began to engage in what could be called future self-scripting. Each entry was written from the perspective of a person who had already achieved their financial aspirations, not hypothetically, but as if it were already a lived experience. It's incredible how effortlessly resources flow now. One entry might begin, "I wake up feeling completely secure, knowing my decisions are driven by purpose, not panic." This wasn't about fantasy. It was about immersing the subconscious mind in the emotional reality of abundance. By vividly describing the feelings, the daily routines, the new capacities, and the impact of this financial freedom, the expanded giving, the innovative projects undertaken, the joyful ease, Alex was actively embedding this reality into the deepest layers of being. This consistent, emotionally charged narrative began to subtly influence current choices, fostering a quiet confidence that propelled action aligned with that future self. In addition to this, the practice of visualization took on a newfound depth, moving beyond mere mental pictures to a full sensory immersion. Instead of simply seeing a bank balance, Alex learned to engage all five senses in the imagined experience of financial well-being. What would it feel like to sign a significant contract? The smooth texture of the paper beneath the pen. What would be the scent of a new, well-appointed workspace? What sounds would accompany a successful investment? Perhaps the chime of a notification, or the quiet satisfaction of a well-executed plan. By weaving together these sensory details with strong emotional resonance, the feeling of deep peace, of profound satisfaction, of unburdened joy, the visualization transcended a simple image to become a powerful, simulated experience within the brain. This heightened engagement convinced the subconscious mind of the reality of these desired outcomes, thereby triggering subtle behavioral shifts and an increased receptivity to real-world opportunities that mirrored these internal creations. Ultimately, these concerted internal practices began to yield tangible external shifts. It wasn't about a sudden windfall, but a series of incremental yet significant changes. Alex found a new clarity in decision-making, intuitively recognizing beneficial paths previously overlooked. Conversations about money became less fraught with anxiety and more imbued with a sense of calm strategy. Unexpected insights into market trends or creative solutions to financial puzzles seemed to emerge effortlessly. The old feeling of chasing money began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of attracting it through an authentic, quiet resonance. The subtle energy of these daily rituals transformed mere intentions into an active, magnetic state, making the transition from internal alignment to external manifestation feel less like a struggle and more like a graceful, unfolding dance. Moving beyond the surface ripples of daily practice, Alex felt a deeper current shift, one that fundamentally altered not just what was done, but who Alex was. The very self-definition around money began to undergo a profound metamorphosis. No longer was Alex the anxious seeker, perpetually striving and questioning. A quiet, unwavering conviction solidified, transforming the inner narrative. This wasn't merely a fleeting positive thought, but a fundamental redesign of identity. Alex was becoming someone who instinctively attracted resources, someone who naturally managed abundance with wisdom and grace. It felt less like an achievement and more like an unfolding, an arrival at a predestined self. A crucial facet of this emerging identity was the recognition of prosperity not as an isolated personal gain, but as an energetic extension of one's authentic purpose. The earlier, constricted view of money as simply a means of personal consumption gradually receded, replaced by a more expansive understanding. Alex started to perceive financial flow as a robust conduit for impact, a tool to amplify positive change in the world. Imagine a swift-flowing river. Its power isn't in its stillness, but in its dynamic movement, irrigating fields and powering turbines. Similarly, this renewed perspective saw wealth as potent energy, intended to flow, to contribute, and to nourish not just personal ambitions, but collective well-being. This shift connected the act of earning and receiving with a higher calling, infusing every financial decision with a deeper layer of meaning. Consequently, this transformation brought an elevated sense of ethical responsibility into sharper focus. When operating from a place of inherent worth and purpose-driven abundance, the impulse to engage in cutthroat competition or to seek gain at another's expense simply dissolved. The previous fear of not enough often fueled choices that felt slightly out of alignment. Now, an abundance mindset fostered profound understanding of interconnectedness. Alex started approaching business dealings, investments, and even charitable contributions with a discerning eye, ensuring that every financial interaction resonated with integrity, transparency, and a genuine desire for mutual benefit. This wasn't a restrictive moral code, but natural expression of a matured consciousness, recognizing that true wealth is built on a foundation of trust and reciprocal value, creating a virtuous cycle that consistently draws more prosperity. A further dimension of this internal renaissance was the blossoming of emotional maturity in handling financial matters. The old pendulum swing between exhilarating hope and crushing despair, often triggered by market fluctuations or unexpected expenses, began to stabilize. Previously, an unexpected bill could send a cascade of anxiety through the system. Now, such events were met with a calm, analytical approach, rooted in the secure knowledge that solutions were always available. Conversely, an unexpected boon no longer provoked impulsive extravagance, but was received with grounded appreciation and a thoughtful consideration of how best to deploy the newfound resource in alignment with one's larger vision. This equanimity, a quiet steadiness in the face of both challenge and opportunity, marked a significant advancement, signifying that money was no longer dictating emotional states, but was being managed by an emotionally resilient individual. Now, consider how this applies when you face a significant financial decision. Instead of approaching it with trepidation or a sense of scarcity, you find yourself asking, how would someone who effortlessly attracts and stewards abundance approach this? This question becomes a powerful internal compass, guiding you towards choices rooted in confidence, long-term vision, and ethical consideration, rather than short-term fear. You begin to trust your inner wisdom, recognizing that the capacity to manage and grow wealth is an inherent part of your empowered self. This new identity, anchored in purpose, integrity, and emotional wisdom, isn't just about possessing more. It's about being more, evolving into a magnate of authentic prosperity whose financial life becomes a seamless, natural extension of their most actualized self. Alex now understood that this profound shift in identity wasn't a final destination, but rather commencement of an entirely new journey, one of continuous calibration and refined attunement. The earlier breakthroughs had certainly been monumental, yet the true art, Alex discovered, lay in embedding this refreshed perspective into the very rhythm of daily existence, making a state of natural abundance the quiet, unwavering default rather than an occasional, effortful endeavor. This ongoing integration moved beyond mere intellectual comprehension. It required a deeper, more cellular embrace, allowing the newfound truths to permeate every aspect of being. A cornerstone of this sustained process revolved around truly grasping the active nature of allowing. It wasn't about passive waiting, nor was it a sign of weakness. Instead, Alex learned it was a deliberate, potent release of subconscious grip, akin to a swimmer relaxing into the current rather than fighting it. This practice involved meticulously recognizing one's current energetic signature, the subtle, vibrational frequency emitted through prevailing thoughts and emotions. Were these vibrations signaling a lack, inadvertently pushing desired outcomes away like a static charge? Or were they broadcasting an open, magnetic receptivity, effortlessly drawing what was aligned? Alex found that a simple, momentary internal scan, a brief check on the body's energetic hum, often illuminated areas of subtle contraction or expansive flow, providing immediate feedback on inner alignment. To operationalize this awareness, Alex cultivated a unique miniature ritual, a mindful reset integrated several times throughout the day. This wasn't a demanding, lengthy meditation, but a concise, 20-second interlude dedicated to deep breathing and an internal affirmation, such as, "I am a conduit for abundant flow." This swift, deliberate act served as a mental circuit breaker, preventing the unconscious drift back into old scarcity narratives and instantly recalibrating the energetic field to one of expansive openness. It was a conscious dial adjustment, ensuring the internal signal remained clear and potent amidst the ordinary static of daily life. Furthermore, a significant element of this enduring reprogramming involved consciously interpreting the external world as a dynamic mirror reflecting the inner landscape. Alex began perceiving the environment not as a series of random events, but as a continuous feedback loop designed to reveal internal states. A sudden, unanticipated expense, once a catalyst for panic, was now approached with a quiet inquisitiveness, viewed as a potential energetic signal of an underlying fear or resistance that needed gentle address. Conversely, a serendipitous opportunity or an unexpected kindness became a powerful affirmation of internal alignment, strengthening the unwavering commitment to this new, grace-filled approach. This real-time, external validation deepened Alex's conviction that persistent internal harmony inevitably manifested as increased external ease. Beyond purely cognitive processes, Alex found profound effectiveness in anchoring this commitment through a unique form of sensory engagement. Rather than exclusively visualizing desired outcomes, the practice extended to physically interacting with objects that evoke the sensation of abundance. This might involve holding a piece of rich, textured fabric, feeling the smooth coolness of a well-crafted ceramic, or even savoring the intricate flavors of a high-quality meal. The intention was to train the nervous system itself to associate these tangible experiences of comfort and pleasure with the emotional state of financial well-being, fostering a deep, embodied knowing that transcended mere intellectual belief. This subtle yet powerful conditioning created new neural pathways that supported the consistent emission of an abundant energetic signature. Ultimately, this holistic integration of subtle practices represented the true essence of the secret method Alex had sought, not a hidden technique, but a profound mastery of inner calibration. It leaned into the astonishing capacity of neuroplasticity, the brain's inherent ability to continuously reshape its own architecture. By consistently choosing the energetic frequency of allowing, by consciously engaging both mind and body in this receptive state, Alex was gently, yet fundamentally, remodeling the very landscape of their financial reality. The ongoing commitment was not to a relentless pursuit, but to this graceful, continuous alignment, trusting that abundance, like the inevitable turning of a tide, would naturally and effortlessly flow. Reflecting on this journey so far, one might recall the subtle, insidious weight that once pressed down, a pervasive undercurrent of unease that colored even moments of quiet ambition. It was like living beneath a sky perpetually overcast, where every ray of potential light felt filtered, muted, or simply out of reach. There was a particular tension in the shoulders, a constant subtle clenching in the jaw, often unnoticed until the very moment it began to release. For Alex, that sensation was a familiar companion, a phantom limb of stress that dictated responses, shaped perceptions, and inadvertently built invisible walls around the very aspirations being pursued. The landscape of financial possibilities seemed vast, yet the pathway forward often felt constrained, winding through narrow passages shadowed by unspoken fears and inherited limitations. But something fundamental has shifted, a recalibration that extends far beyond mere intellectual understanding. It's as if a deep, Resonant tuning fork has been struck within, vibrating a new frequency through the entire being. The world outside, once perceived through a lens clouded by scarcity and apprehension, now reveals itself with sharper focus, a clearer definition of opportunity and flow. This isn't just about recognizing old narratives. It's about feeling the subtle yet seismic collapse of those antiquated structures within the very architecture of thought. The heavy cloak of expectation and effort has been shed, revealing a more agile, responsive self, ready to move with, rather than against, the natural currents of life. The most striking change isn't in what appears on the horizon, but in the internal readiness to receive it. Imagine a parched landscape, long awaiting rain. When the first drops fall, the earth doesn't question their arrival. It simply opens, absorbs, and begins to transform. This new internal disposition mirrors that receptive earth. Opportunities, ideas, and synchronicities that once might have been overlooked, dismissed as coincidence, or filtered out by the static of anxiety, now register with startling clarity. They arrive not as demands for relentless struggle, but as gentle invitations, almost like a whispered conversation with the universe, where insights unfold with an effortless grace that belies their profound impact. The pursuit of growth no longer feels like pushing a boulder uphill, but rather like tending a garden where seeds of intention, once carefully planted, are now burgeoning with life, drawing nourishment from a newly fertile inner soil. This evolving internal state has given rise to a quiet authority, a deep sense of self-possession in the face of financial considerations. The erratic oscillations of hope and disappointment, once a dominant rhythm, have given way to a steady, unwavering pulse of confidence. It's an understanding that one's capacity for creation and abundance is not tethered to external circumstances, but springs forth from an internal wellspring of clarity and purpose. There's a profound sense of integration, where personal aspirations, ethical values, and the graceful flow of resources are no longer disparate entities vying for attention, but interwoven strands of a vibrant, coherent tapestry. The very definition of prosperity expands, embracing not just monetary gain, but in richness of experience, connection, and meaningful contribution. This journey, from the confines of an old story to the expansive vista of a new reality, culminates not in a final destination, but in an abiding state of being. It's an activation, a conscious unlocking of an intrinsic resonance with the very essence of abundance itself. The diligent cultivation of this inner landscape has paved the way for something truly transformative, something that moves beyond mere wishing or striving. It's about stepping into a continuous, natural flow, where the energy of prosperity isn't chased, but rather naturally emanates from a deeply aligned core. The path ahead invites not just further understanding, but profound immersion into this effortless reality, a seamless dance between the conscious self and the boundless possibilities that inherently belong to you. The pervasive hum of anxiety, once a constant presence in Alex's inner landscape, had finally faded to a gentle whisper, then to silence. The frantic chase, that relentless exertion against an invisible current, had ceased. Alex stood now not on a precipice of fear, but on a vast, open plain of quiet certainty, the air around feeling lighter, imbued with effortless potential. The discovery wasn't a sudden, blinding flash, but a gradual unfolding, a gentle untangling of knots that had bound the spirit for years. The true revelation wasn't about finding an external key to unlock an elusive treasure chest. It was about realizing the lock was always on the inside, and the key had always been within. The pervasive struggle, the feeling of tirelessly pushing against the tide, had been a deeply ingrained pattern, a learned response to scarcity etched into the very fabric of being. Alex understood now that the invisible blocks weren't external forces of resistance, but internal echoes of limiting narratives. Stories inherited, adopted, and clung to with an unconscious tenacity. The true turning point, the moment of profound liberation, wasn't when more money finally arrived, but when the need for it to arrive with struggle dissolved. It was a moment when the belief that abundance demanded a trade-off, peace for profit, joy for financial gain, shattered, revealing a far more expansive and harmonious truth. This profound shift was less about a secret method and more about mastering a profound state of being, the art of allowing, It was a subtle recalibration from striving to receiving, from forced manifestation to graceful magnetism. It meant tuning the internal instrument, not to a frantic, discordant tempo of anxiety and lack, but to a clear, resonant frequency of gratitude, trust, and inherent worthiness. This wasn't a one-time adjustment, but an ongoing, gentle dance, an intimate conversation with the universe where intentions were softly articulated and solutions were patiently awaited, trusting they would unfold in perfect timing and form. The real wealth Alex had discovered wasn't merely quantifiable in bank accounts or investments, though those aspects naturally began to flourish with surprising ease. The true, enduring treasure was a restoration of inner peace, the reclamation of personal power, and a profound liberation from the shackles of perpetual effort. It was the ability to approach financial decisions not from a place of fear or desperation, but from a grounded wisdom, an ethical compass, and an unshakable belief in one's capacity to create and steward prosperity. This newly claimed identity, that of a conscious creator and magnet for abundance, felt less like an achievement and more like a homecoming. The landscape of life, once fraught with potential pitfalls and unseen barriers, now revealed itself as a tapestry rich with opportunity. Synchronistic connections materialized, creative insights flowed effortlessly, and new pathways to contribution emerged with startling clarity. This wasn't magic, but the natural consequence of energetic alignment, a testament to the undeniable power of an internal world finally harmonized with external aspirations. The relentless hustle had given way to an elegant flow, a graceful partnership with the very forces that shape reality. As Alex stepped forward, the journey wasn't perceived as complete, but as beautifully initiated. The practice of deep alignment, of releasing resistance and embracing allowing, became a continuous thread woven into the fabric of each day. It was a commitment not to achieving an end, but to embodying a state where prosperity was not chased, but experienced as a natural extension of purpose and being. This profound transformation beckons each of us to shed the heavy armor of struggle, to trust the quiet wisdom within, and step into the effortless dance of abundance that has always patiently awaited our embrace. This is your moment, too, to switch into effortless manifestation, allowing the currents of wealth to flow to you, not through endless grind, but through graceful, unburdened alignment.